This is our neighborhood in San Francisco. See that wooden fence on the blue wall with the big green bushes? Our house is hidden away behind all that, at the back of the garden. Carrie and I have lived in this house for 25 years. Our younger son was born here. Now Carrie's mother, Natalie, has died here. When we brought Natalie into our home 2 months before she died, with Carrie's encouragement, I began documenting their last days together.
We can be singing.
We could be a singing team.
Russian song.
Russian, Jewish, Italian.
They take us.
They take us.
Oh boy.
So this was a picture we found when we were packing up all of her stuff.
How old do you think she is?
She's probably about 22 years old here.
Yeah, maybe. Where was she? This was New York?
This was New York.
Yeah. Yeah, probably this is how I first remember her.
Yeah.
It's a nice picture.
Yeah.
She looks happy.
Well, she was happy when she was with us. The problem is that most of the time she was completely by herself.
Yeah. I remember her not liking to be photographed a lot.
She didn't think she looked good in photographs. And I loved taking pictures of her. I thought she was beautiful, and I always tried to get her at a time when she would be laughing, because I loved when she smiled, her whole face lit up. And
it's good. She was always happy when there's people around.
Yeah.
Who come visit her.
Yeah, she would really open up.
Yeah. She'd really like it.
Yeah.
So this is her house?
That's her house. Look how isolated it is.
But I really remember being outside, like at these places, and running around on rocks and like chasing snakes and rabbits, jackrabbits everywhere in Quail. It's a great place for a little kid to run around. It was a really nice house.
It's a beautiful house, yeah. But it was really built for she and my dad to live in together, and then she found herself living there all by herself, and not even any near neighbors.
Why did she stay so long then?
She loved it. She didn't want to leave. She just wanted to stay there. My mother was living alone here in the California desert, but as she got older, it became impossible for her to manage by herself. She had a series of small strokes, and even some car accidents. I urged her at this point to move out of her house and into a community where she'd have regular assistance and activities. But she refused. My mother could be very charming, especially with strangers and casual acquaintances. But she spent much too much time by herself. I started phoning her every day, but when I spoke with her, she was bitter and cranky. Both my husband Yasha and I felt she needed our family around her. But she really liked the solitude, and she didn't want to be dependent on us. Then she started falling down, and we had no choice. We had to move her. She didn't want to leave, and I think I let her stay in her house much longer than I should have. We got her a small apartment in San Francisco, near where I worked, so I could see her every day, do her shopping, take her to the doctor. And then we returned to the desert to pack up and sell her house. She was really angry at me for moving her. Well, no, Mom, it's not that I can't take it from you. I can take it from you. You know, you get very resentful, and when you get resentful, you get very mean to me, and here I am trying to help you. I know you suffer for it afterwards, but Mom, I just have to tell you when I'm feeling that it's too much for me, I have to tell you, and then, you know, it's not forever. You know, I love you, and I'm happy to do this for you. It's just sometimes it gets to be too much for me if all I'm getting from you is a negative reaction. I mean, this is an opportunity, and this is the time for us to really make it, listen, Mom, listen, because this is important to me. This is the time for us to make it really wonderful and loving, and to make our love and our friendship for each other be the most important thing. Really, I want it that way, Mom. I really want our love and friendship to be the most important. Well, keep trying. We just keep trying to make it good rather than bad. That's our goal. Well, me too, I'll try hard. I love you, Mom. Okay. I'm glad to hear from you. Bye.
So is your mom having a hard time with you packing up her house?
Today she was accepting of it. Yesterday was very difficult. I had to scream and yell at her to make her understand anything that I was trying to do. Today was fine. A bad day, a good day.
It's hard getting older.
It's hard. It's hard getting older. It's hard seeing someone that you love get old and realize that they just, not only can they not do what they want to do for themselves anymore, but they can't accept the fact that that's the way it is either. It's hard. As her dementia advanced, she became obsessed with maintaining her independence, when in fact she'd become completely dependent on me and others for even the most basic functions and decisions. This was the most difficult period for me, and took the most patience on my part. Like many old people, Natalie was self-absorbed and not easy to get along with, especially in the last 10 years. Since I was the last family member to have a continuing relationship with her, I was the target for all of her anger and frustrations. I worked very hard at not taking things personally. It wasn't easy, but it allowed me to get along with her and take care of her as best I could. We found her a residential community just outside the city, where she lived amongst other old people, had her own apartment, her own kitchen, and a sense of independence, but didn't have to cook or clean for herself. At first, she liked being there, but unfortunately, she was past the point of being able to make new friends and was suspicious of everyone. She was incontinent and wasn't even aware that her clothes were soiled. When we arranged for someone to come and help wash and dress her, she became very aggressive and refused the help. That next summer, while we were away, she had what was called a psychotic episode and was placed in a smaller board and care facility where she had a room and constant supervision. At this point, she was being given antidepressant drugs that completely confused her. My mother had always said that she didn't want to live if she couldn't care for herself. She'd written a very specific living will that stated she didn't want any heroics at the end of her life. She even wrote that she didn't want any action or non-action that would prolong her life. She didn't even want antibiotics in the event of an infection. We signed the document together, and then later she asked me to promise that if she wasn't capable of carrying out these wishes, I would help her. I promised. And here we were in a situation where she, because of her dementia, had forgotten her wishes, but I hadn't forgotten my promise. It was clear to me that as long as she was in an institution, there was no hope of stopping the drugs that were being given to keep her manageable and keep her appetite up. Once when I visited her during one of these meals, she looked at me and said, "Get me out of here. I don't know why I keep eating. I don't want to. I just want to die." She was 90 years old. She was ready to die. And while all her caretakers were trying to keep her alive, I knew that I had to do everything that I could to bring her home and allow death to come to her. I looked for weeks for a doctor who would be willing to take her on as a home care patient, given her condition of advanced dementia. Finally, I found a doctor through the General Hospital Clinic who understood our concerns and was supportive of us bringing her home. He told me that I'd have to bring her into the hospital for an initial exam, but after that, she could be cared for in our home. I told him that I knew about the clinic because our younger son had been born at home with the supervision of that clinic. He laughed, and he said, "Well, you've really come around full circle, haven't you?"
You can count the mountains. 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 Love the mountains. You can count them. You can count the mountains. You can count the mountains. You can count the mountains. They can count the mountains. It's
And there are colors and light
it's
and the clouds.
Glim. It's summer.
Yeah,
It's summer. It's summer.
yeah.
It's summer.
Just go
It's
with it
glim.
now and let go of this.
Glim.
Let go of this
It's
now.
summer. With this high. It's high. It's grim.
Rest, Mom. Just rest. Just rest, Mom. The mountains will still be there. They'll still be there. Just rest. Just rest.
I'm letting my think. Think.
And what are you thinking?
Think
Yeah,
of the life
yeah,
of the crown. Of the crown.
yeah,
I can't think anymore.
yeah. But we can think for you, Mom. We can think for you.
Well, thank you.
My mother was born in Krakow at the beginning of the century, the oldest child in a German-speaking, non-religious Jewish family. They wandered across Europe, from Krakow to Vienna, Lucerne. Eventually, they arrived in Paris just before World War I was declared. The family was forced to stay in a French internment camp for German speakers. Later, my grandmother and all the children stayed with French peasants on a farm near Nantes. After the war, the family was reunited and they emigrated to New York. A gifted linguist, my mother easily integrated herself into school life, but she needed to help earn money for the family and gave up college to work in the millinery industry. As a young woman, my mother was a feminist and was very active in union politics, which is where she met my father, Steve, a union organizer. My sister and I were born during World War II, while my father was in the Air Force instructing glider pilots. After the war, we lived in Brooklyn and then moved to a new house in the suburbs of Long Island, which is where I grew up. My mother busied herself raising us, doing political work in the community, and organizing the first parent-teacher association at our schools. When my sister and I left home, they started having marital problems, and then decided to move from New York to the California desert. When my mother was 75, my father left her to begin a new family with a younger woman, and my mother never got over it. She lived alone in her house without any family or friends nearby, and she'd been too dependent on my father and hadn't developed enough interests of her own to keep her going when he was gone. I was the last one left to take care of her. About a week after we brought her home, I put a tray in front of her, and she stared at it for the longest time, and then looked at me and said, "Do I have to eat?" And I said, "No, of course not." After that, she refused all food and only drank juices. About 2 weeks after that, she accepted only water. And yet, she was happier than I remember her in years. Surrounded by us, our sons, our friends, she let go of all of her worldly concerns, and she was at peace. Fortunately, a registered nurse and a physical therapist came to our house often to work with my mother and instruct me on how to care for her and use the medical equipment she needed when I was on my own. We also found a wonderful nurse's aide to come into our home several hours each day to take over for me so that I could continue working. But the rest of the time, I was completely focused on my mother.
really enjoyed having Grandma here. But our house is small, so when she moved into my room, I moved down into the basement, which wasn't so bad because my piano's down there. I'd practice all the time, and I know she could hear me playing because she told me so.
Barbara, it's Carrie. Hi. I'm doing okay. How are you? I'm at home. And you know, I've got my mom here. Well, she's been here since mid-November. And she's going to pass on real soon. Really soon, yeah. Like in the next couple of days or so. Yeah. So I just wanted to call you and let you know. Natalie, I'm gonna change you and wash you. I'm gonna change you and wash you. When we brought Natalie home to our house, it was late autumn. The leaves on the trees were turning gold. She liked to sit outside in the sunshine and watch the leaves fall. One day, just after she'd stopped eating, the wind was blowing the leaves down around her, and she gathered them on her lap and said with a smile, "When the leaves are gone, I'll be gone too." She died right before the new year. Outside her door, there was just one leaf left on the vine. My mother had lived a long, full life. The hardest part of her dying wasn't taking care of her, but dealing with all my own issues about loving and wanting to be loved. Fortunately, at the end of her life, she had some moments of real clarity in her dementia, where she expressed her love for me and heard that I loved her too. And thank goodness for that. The last time that I went to wash her, I turned her over very carefully because her bones were brittle. and all of her breath went out. I had my hands on her, and I stood there looking at her for a long time. She'd finally let go, and she didn't need to hang on anymore to this body that didn't work. After a while, I went to the door, and I threw it open. It was a beautiful starry night, and all this cool air rushed in, and I stood there looking at the stars. I was just so happy. She was free.